Hello and welcome back to Fear the Wave Collective's Inside the Wave show. I'm here with my co-host John and a special guest in Scott McFarland. Scott runs the Boscoe's Boys podcast. He is now up to 860 episodes, which is very impressive. Hopefully Fear the Wave is up to that someday soon. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I thank you guys for having me on. It's just if folks are looking at me, they're like, what is this fat dude? He's K-State, right? Why is he, red? Well, I'm looking forward to the back-to-back Super Bowl champions kicking off the NFL season here in a few hours here in the Kansas City Metro. So I'm looking forward to it. It's the best time of the year. I mean, college football, baseball, playoff races, the NFL kicking off. It's a great time to be alive. Of course, the U.S. Open tennis going on as well. I'm not cultured enough to really like tennis as much as the next guy, but I love watching the championship matches. So just greatest sporting part of the year. I think September and October are the two best months because football's getting going and just love it. How are you guys doing? I ramble way too much.
It's an interesting take. I might have to agree with you, as I was fortunate to just be working at the U.S. Open the last 5 days. But I'm excited for some real football games. We played an FCS opponent last week, and we're excited to face a real tough opponent in a ranked Kansas State team.
Yeah, I wish I could say I'm looking forward to it. I'm not. I think I definitely have a little bit of PTSD from a couple years ago. But the one thing I'm telling myself is we lost that game and still went on to win the Big 12. So if that's a trade-off that I'm forced to take, then okay, show me the magic genie and I'll make that trade-off. But sadly, in the world of football, I don't think you can make those trade-offs. So I'm a little nervous, at least a little bit more nervous than I'd ever want to be for a week 2 game.
We'll get into the
definitely fair. Sorry, excuse me. I was going to say that's definitely fair. Is that kind of what most Kansas State fans you think are thinking about heading into the matchup right now, or is that just a personal sort of PTSD?
I think most K-State fans, I think there's like a cautious optimism. I don't think you're going to find too many K-State fans who are going to be making predictions on the record saying, yeah, K-State's going to win by 24. There might be some folks who are like saying, hey, maybe a late touchdown gets it to 17. There's plenty of folks that are like, okay, it's going to be a 1-score game all the way. There's a few folks who are like saying, no, we're going to lose this game. So I think it's a spectrum from, hey, we're going to lose again because it's on the road, second game of the season, kind of thinking back to 2022, and then everywhere ranging from there to, okay, it might be tight, but a late touchdown makes it feel a little bit more comfortable than it actually was. So I think that's the gambit of where K-State fans are right now.
I think most Tulane fans are usually pretty optimistic and think that they're going to win every single game, especially in the American Conference. Is that a little bit rare for Kansas State fans to think that they might lose this game?
So I think for K-State fans, at least in the Chris Kleiman era, after he got things rolling, I think in the offseason, fans are usually like, all right, let's try to find the loss, all this type of stuff. And especially this year, before the season kicked off, and I'm not saying that it's not still like this, but, a lot of folks are saying, all right, we're going to be the Vegas favorite in all 12 games. It will be an upset if we lose any regular season games. A lot of the advanced analytics and predictive metrics had K-State, as the team that should win all 12 games. Well, you don't play football on spreadsheets, you play it between the gridiron. But once the season kicks off, and I think probably every game from here until we play Houston, because even Arizona State, shown a little bit of a pulse. We'll see what Cincinnati looks like. But I think most games you're going to find a handful of K-State fans are like saying, oh, man, I think we're going to drop this one. So there's an element of that in the fan base. So I think you get a wide range of emotions with K-State fans once the season actually kicks off.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an exciting game. What do you think from a Kansas State perspective is the formula that has to happen on Saturday in order for Kansas State to beat Tulane? If Kansas State comes out with a win, what do you think that looks like?
Well, I think the first thing really comes down to winning the turnover battle. Something they didn't do versus UT Martin last week. They were 0 for 2 in the turnovers. And when you're going to, and I use this, and please don't take this as disrespect for the American, because the American's better than the ACC this year. But if you're going on the road to a school that isn't in that Power 4 classification, there's going to be an extra chip on the shoulder for the players. There's going to be an extra edge amongst the crowd. So if you are turning the ball over, if you're giving into that hope, if you're giving into that hype, it turns into a hornet's nest. And then all of a sudden, in a game where you might think, all right, you should come away with the win, maybe get that late score to make it feel a little better than what it really felt like for 3 quarters. All of a sudden, you turn the ball over twice and you can't get it back from them. All of a sudden, the momentum's on with the home team. The momentum is with these guys who are saying, hey, look, they thought that they could, steamroll us. Nope, try again. This is Tulane football. So if you don't win that turnover battle, you have to do so much more to turn that momentum. And in games like this, momentum can be an equalizer. Or, again, I'd imagine Tulane fans are probably thinking to themselves, hey, we beat these jokers a few years ago. They're the ones who need the momentum to beat us. So, again, if that's, the stance of, the blue and green, then, hey, you need to win that turnover battle so you can start feeling good about yourself if you're a K-State fan. So I think that's going to be the number one thing, because I feel good enough about K-State's defense that if we can win that turnover battle, I feel confident in the game. But if you're giving extra possessions away, I mean, buckle up. I mean, it could be a 4-quarter or 4-quarter plus game.
We'll have to see what happens. Can you give us a little bit more background on Kansas State's first game against UT Martin, and if it was close or really did feel like a 41-6 blowout despite some turnovers?
So the first half was not a lot of fun. So you went 3 and out to the very first drive. You score a touchdown on your second. You turn it over as you're driving on the third, and then you get a field goal. So that's what you did on offense. There was a punt block for a touchdown, so it was 17-3. You felt good about the defense, but at halftime, I'm talking with my buddies in the stadium. I'm like, I don't feel great about that. And then you open up the second half with a fumble on the kickoff. Luckily, again, the defense had a good backbone, and they were able to hold them to 3. And then from there it was touchdown. And then, in garbage time, you got another touchdown with the backups. So it probably feels like it was closer than the final score. But then again, so it's Stats of War on Twitter. His name's Parker Fleming. He has a net success rate, and K-State ended up being one of the top 5 or 6 teams in net success rate last week. His original graphic didn't have FBS versus FCS, but when he included that, K-State was amongst the top 5. So when I saw that and you dive into a little bit more, you're like, okay, well, the defense was dominant, and yeah, the offense didn't feel great, but I think we only had 45 snaps or something super small on offense. So it's like, how much could they really show? How much could they really get into it? So after the rewatch and looking at some of that stuff, I felt a lot better from that game. But again, UT Martin, when you're talking FCS, I mean, they've had a piece of 4 straight OVCs. So they're not, Lindenwood or anything like that. So the more I get away from the initial motions of the game, I feel a lot better with how it went.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of times, it's never as good or as bad as you think it is. Is the old saying there? Is there a particular matchup that you like for Kansas State, or one that you're worried about in this game?
I mean, look, I think where it's going to come down to, and this is 1940s football guy. I mean, I think, and at least the last I looked, it looked like there might be some rain in the forecast. I think both teams probably would like to be able to run the ball. And who knows? Maybe Tulane's now going to throw it all over the park for 500 yards. But I think it's going to come down to kind of the front seven for both defenses. So can K-State's defensive line, which I thought had a good game versus UTM, can they have another good game versus Tulane's offensive line, which allows your linebackers to go make tackles? Because it's a numbers game. If you can eat a double team in the middle, and if you can, keep, guards from climbing up to that second level, you got to hope that your linebackers can make those tackles and no big plays. On the flip side of it, again, I wasn't super high on the passing game from K-State. It sounds like there was a conceded effort to not show a lot, especially in the passing game, especially in the quarterback run game. But DJ Giddens is, I think, the most underrated player in college football right now. And if he can get past that first line, it takes a talented linebacker to take him down with one hit. So if he can get to that second level, those can be big plays. So it's really, for me, going to come down to trenches versus trenches.
I agree with you. I thought that's how the game went last time. Tulane struggled in the passing game, including 2 interceptions for Michael Pratt. Y'all won the turnover battle 2-0 in that game. And that's rare for Tulane. Tulane, again, also in the American Conference. They don't have to play in a Power 4 conference at the moment, but they've won 20 of their last 23 games when they force a turnover, and they force a turnover almost every single game. So if they can win the turnover battle, it's looking pretty good for them. And last time they struggled in the turnover battle, but especially in the passing game, neither team fumbled, and then they threw 2 interceptions and didn't reach 200 passing yards. The running game was strong for not only Tajay Spears, but also Iverson Celestine. Michael Pratt almost had 100 yards rushing himself, which is one of the most rushing yards in a game in his career. And I think that we could see the same thing this game. All the talk in the offseason was about Mekhi Hughes, how he got faster, stronger, was one of the best rushers in the entire nation last year, not just the group of 5. But it's been a group effort so far in the season opener. We'll see this week, but I think it's going to be a group effort again. I think that Tulane has 5 guys that can all rush strong in the backfield. I think we'll see a lot of Shotty Clayton Johnson, who uses the gaps well and bounces off, makes plays. Duda Barnes, Jamari McClure, and Trey Cornish as well.
And then if you go back to that 2022 game, I think K-State had a handful of failed 4th down conversions. I think Tulane had a couple that they did get, and ultimately in what was a game that came down to the wire, 1 possession the entire way. That's another thing. I'm hoping, it doesn't come down to that, because, again, you never want to be the road team depending on being the better 3rd and 4th down team. But if it comes down to that, again, if you want to talk about PTSD, and of course I'm using that in a sarcastic manner, not to minimize, that for anyone else. But if it comes down to that, if I'm looking at a 4th and 2 in a tie game in the 4th quarter, I'm going to be pacing in my basement. My dog's going to be looking at me like I've gone off the deep end. So.
Yeah, it was actually 4 4th down stops for Tulane, including a big one at the very end, not the very end of the game, but almost the end of the game, with Lance Robinson getting the stop.
Yeah, and of course Lance Robinson, former K-State Wildcat, of course, getting that stop. So,
yeah.
Not only did Tulane stop Kansas State on 4th down, but it was actually ended Tulane, if I remember correctly, went for it on a 4th and 1.
Yep.
In Tulane's own territory in a 1-score game to finish off the Wildcats. Hopefully history repeats itself this year. I know you're not going to agree with that, but
I was going to say, speak for yourself, buddy.
And hopefully Tulane keeps riding the analytics.
So did you guys have any 4th downs last week? Like, do you have an inkling of, if this new regime is going to be going forward on 4th down a lot more, or, do you have a vibe with that yet? Oh, did that come through?
Yeah, I think we'll see.
Or I got it.
There you go, John.
Not a lot of need to go for it on 4th down last week. Obviously, Tulane also played an FCS school, won 52-0, so that game was over, by the 3rd quarter. The new regime, I would say is going to trust the analytics more based on just my time around them. But if there's a situation where it's kind of 50-50 or close to it, I would expect them to go for it. It seems like a pretty aggressive staff, but not stupidly aggressive. They will go by the numbers first, but if a decision is within reason, I would expect to go for it. You talked a little bit, or we talked a little bit about the last time Tulane won. One of the differences in this game is not a lot of experience at the quarterback, not just for Tulane and Darian Minter, who made his first career start last week, but Avery Johnson also hasn't had a lot of playing time. He's now the starter. What's the fan base's perception around him?
So everyone loves Avery Johnson, and I would argue that last year they very easily could have gone to him earlier over Will Howard, who is now at Ohio State. I think that the only takeaway I was frustrated with last week, and it's been pounded into my head from folks with K-State, that they're not going to run him like crazy early in the season because it's a long season. But that's his most electric weapon. He is I think he can be a capable passer. I think he'll be a good passer. He was in the Elite 11 competition as a recruit, and that has nothing to do with your legs. You don't get bonus points for running a 4.3 40 in the Elite 11. It's all how you throw. But his most electric weapon is his legs. We saw one designed run and two scrambles last week. And Chris Kleiman said in his press availability that, hey, there was some read option in there, and UT Martin was just taking away the quarterback keep read. He said, hey, you read all of them correctly. But K-State fans are still over the moon with it. Again, I was a little critical of him. And like I said, folks from K-State and other K-State fans were like, dude, you need to chill out. And I think he's going to be electric. I said at the beginning of the season in my predictions episode that he will not be a Heisman finalist, but he will be in the top 10 in votes. I don't know if that's going to happen, but he has that sort of talent. So will it come through on Saturday, that high level, that ceiling? Probably not, but I'm hoping that by the end of the season, especially, folks are talking about him as one of the most electric quarterbacks in the country.
Well, we'll have to see. I have one last question for you, Scott. There's a bit of a two-parter. I want to know how significant this game is for Manhattan fans, as I think this is the most anticipated game on Tulane's schedule this year. And then I also want to know why more fans aren't coming to Uptown in New Orleans for this game.
So I think K-State fans, if they were trying to rank excitement, it's probably not in the top half. So if all things go K-State's way, the following Friday, we're hosting Arizona in what would be a top 20 matchup. Then, again, knocking on wood, in a best case scenario, a couple weeks later, you could be having a top 15 matchup at home with Oklahoma State. The in-state rival KU are coming to town. We play Farmageddon to end the year. Hopefully there's not a snow, blizzard. But again, that's a game that's been played every single year for going on 120 years. So you have those four games right there that are absolutely massive for the fan base. Then I think there's a lot of excitement to play some of the new teams. So there's a lot of K-State fans who are going up to the BYU game up in Utah. I would say that's one of the more anticipated games. And then, they have a great relationship with Fort Riley, which is one of the Army bases. It's just up the road in Fort Riley Day versus Arizona State. Again, I'm not saying that's going to be a fun game, but that's always a very exciting game for the fan base as well. I would say the Tulane game's probably somewhere around there. Again, especially in this new world of college football, everything went with conference games. It just accelerated so much. I'm not a playoff guy. I don't really care for that. If I had it my way, we'd go back to the BCS, but with so much emphasis on winning your conference and what that means for the rest of the postseason, I think that we're in an era where non-conference games, they're fun. And everyone, you can have a lot of fun with them, but the importance of all the conference games means so much. And then why there's not going to be more K-State fans going down. I think it's like three different things. I think the first thing is we were just down in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl 18 months ago. I stopped watching when K-State went up, 14-3 or whatever the score was early. So I think it was 10-0. I turned it off. I don't know what happened versus Alabama after that one. But so they were just down in New Orleans. Again, I think that there are some other away games that K-State fans have circled a little bit more. And then it's economics of it. It's not very close. It's a very long drive from Kansas. If you're flying out of Kansas City, even, a Southwest flight, is running $350, $400. If you want to use any of like the non-budget airlines, you're looking at $700 just to fly down to New Orleans. So it just a lot of things are, kind of preventing it from being a lot more K-State fans, which is too bad because it's a super cool stadium, and any game I've watched there, it seems like the atmosphere is very good. So I wish I was going, but I'm not going to. And sadly, it doesn't seem like a lot of K-State fans are either.
I agree. It's a great stadium celebrating its 10th anniversary. Scott, before you sign off, do you have a score prediction?
Yeah, so on my show, I said K-State 27, Tulane 17, which was like right on the number. It was at 10. I think it opened up at 7.5, got up to 10. Now it's been floating back and forth around 9. I'm thinking how it's going to go. I think it's going to be tight early. I think both teams are going to try to run the ball. I think it will come down to some turnovers and big plays. I'm not even foreseeing, a 10-point. I do think it'll be a touchdown late to move it to 2 possessions for K-State. And it'll be a game where it's like, hey, you better make sure you have your baby aspirin or your, antacid next to you because it's going to be a stressful game. But I do have K-State getting the revenge game. But I'm hoping that, Tulane then wins the rest of the games, and hopefully we get a rematch in the college football playoff in the quarterfinal. You guys beat whoever the 5 seed is, and then we'll meet you guys out in Tempe, Arizona in the Fiesta Bowl. So that's what I'm rooting for. So I'm hoping this isn't our only matchup this year.
That'd be fun. I think it'll also be a close game. Scott, how can our listeners and viewers find your show, and what should they know about you?
Yeah, so you can find the show at Boscoe's Boys on Twitter. It's on every single app. We go 5 episodes a week starting in July through the end of the year, so through December, and then we go to 2 to 3 through all of basketball season, and then at least 1 episode all through the off season. Have not missed a week for over 6 years at this point. At least 1 episode every single week for going on however many weeks that is. It's named after the original dog mascot at K-State. There was a black lab named Boscoe. That was the original mascot at K-State. At Scott Wildcat, if you guys want to bully me if Tulane wins. That's my personal Twitter account, so you guys can bully me if it doesn't go my way. I will accept any of that. And what to know about me? I love college football. I love this time of the year. I love sports. I like how it brings everyone together. I think too much of college fandom is turning into how much does my athletic department make? And, oh, hey, I'm going to this conference and we're going to finish 8th, but by God, we're in this conference. I hate that. I want folks, to push back against some of that, and embrace playing your rivals and embrace competing for conference championships. And just remember what college sports is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be, if you're a student, cheering on your fellow students. It's about like, hey, these guys could, be walking to class at the same time as me. I might be in the same class. I had class with tons of athletes when I was going to K-State. When you're alumni, it's about cheering for that school that helped mold you during formative years of your life, and getting together with your buddies who you went to school with and sharing that connection. Like for me, I'm a 3rd generation K-State graduate. My father, his 2 brothers, his grandfather, and then my younger brother and our cousin. That's what college sports is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about what's in, your athletic department's bank account. Just enjoy cheering on your fellow students or folks who are representing your school. So I'll get off my soapbox, and I'll thank Isaac and John for letting me come on. And anyone who's listening, I hope you guys, I hope you have a little bit of fun on Saturday, not too much fun. But regardless, hey, college football is the best sport in the world, and I hope everyone has a good one.
Absolutely agree, Scott. Thank you so much.
Anytime, boys.